Hi, Kia.
Hi, buddy. How are you?
Hi, I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing well. It's nice to see you. Is it morning where you are? What is it?
Yeah,
Where
it
are you?
is. It is. It is. I'm in Mumbai now. I'm in Mumbai, so it's past 12 o'clock. It's good to see you. I mean, we haven't met each other since the pandemic began.
That's right.
I remember working on Misfits with you, and it's been suddenly this whole the world was kind of taken over. So it's really good to see you. I thought I
It's a
could
pleasure
travel
to
and
be
see
here.
you in person.
Right.
Yeah,
Hopefully too. We'll see each other in New
yeah,
York.
yeah.
Hopefully too. Thanks. It's nice to meet
Absolutely.
you. Thank you so much. I'm happy to be here.
Thanks for coming, Kia. Kia, so to start off with this, because this particular VAM Awards and what we're doing, I mean, I want people to know about what you have been doing and how you've been doing your stuff. We had such a great experience working with you for Misfits. So you have been producing films for the past 20 years. So from a director's point of view, how has it been like as a producer working with different directors, working with different actors, and have you come in contact with any of the films in the subcontinent, in India or in Southeast Asia? How has it been? How has your journey been in 20 years?
It's been pretty fantastic. I have to say it's been a roller coaster ride at times. Pretty high
Right.
highs,
Yeah.
pretty
Yeah.
high lows, if you can imagine. But I'm very
Right.
fortunate and very blessed that I get to do what I do at the level that I operate at, and I'm surrounded by very wonderful, great, talented people that kind of make it look
Right.
easy. So it's been terrific. Whether it's a little $2 million experimental movie that we shot in Russia, or we're going to do a $50 million kind of CG
Right.
packed picture this calendar year. So anything in between that range is typically where we like to swim, and it's been a lot of fun. As far as the filmmakers are concerned, I've worked with some excellent filmmakers. Some have become very good friends of mine. Some were friends before we
Right.
started working together, and some, you just kind of go do a job, and you see them around town. And I haven't, we haven't become very close friends, but they've all been professional and great. It's been good to work with, and as I said, I've been very fortunate. We've obviously have issues on the pictures, but we managed to put our heads together and find
Right.
solutions and figure out a good way to get out of it. So it's been actually quite an experience, and I like it. I'm still doing it, so I got to be doing something.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. The same goes for us. Like we like it. We face our challenges similarly here, but we don't want to do anything else.
No.
No, it's been amazing. But yeah, one of the challenges that we have been facing here post the pandemic, now that we can probably see that it's almost over, is and most of the films now is heavily dependent. They are heavily dependent on CGI and on VFX, because a lot of shoots they're into the virtual production. We are doing virtual production rather than going to places where probably it's difficult to travel at the moment. And probably that's a better way of life, considering all the examples that's there in front of us. How do you think the allocation for VFX and importance and the allocation in terms of the budgets have changed over the years, and also now, the significant difference that we have post pandemic? Do you see a difference there? Because I can clearly see a difference
I
here.
think, yeah, I think we're seeing a bit of a shift. I mean, one of it is a voluntary shift. The other one is not a voluntary shift. I think you
Right.
brought up a couple interesting points. One being that what the pandemic has forced us to do is it's forced us to
Yeah.
get even more creative and try to figure out how to deal with the fact that I need a particular backdrop and I can't go there and get it because of all the restrictions and travel and whatnot. So we're relying on visual effects to kind of keep our movies organically authentic, right? Keep being able to show that we're places
Right.
that we're not. So that has been a direct result of the pandemic, and I think some of that is good and some of it is not good. The other thing that I think we've seen is that the technology continues to get better and easier and cheaper to work with. So we're able to do more today than we were able to before. I think a good example of that would be, if you think about when Steven Spielberg made Jurassic Park, he could
Right.
not have done
Absolutely.
that movie 10 years before.
Right.
That movie that was the time to make Jurassic, because the technology allowed him to tell that story the way he did and the way he
Absolutely.
and I think that was a pretty pivotal and critical point between Stan Winston's designs and the work that Dennis and his team did at Industrial Light and Magic. That was the
Right.
time that they could do that. That was so. So I think we're starting to see a little bit more of that. We can do things today. We can tackle things today
Right.
that because of the technology and the work that companies like yours do, we're able to execute those things in not a giant movie. Not, it doesn't need to be Lord of the Rings at $100 or $200 million for us to be able to
absolutely.
want to go. Whereas, years ago, I made a picture a long time ago. It was a picture called Dungeons and Dragons. And the first draft that we had, I remember actually going up to ILM because we had, fighting dragon battles in the sky with these floating ships. And it was pretty crazy. There was this really bizarre, wonderful, sequences at the end. And I remember the visual effects bid that we got from ILM at the time was somewhere in the neighborhood of $25 or $27 million.
Right.
And that's the amount of firepower and manpower it was needed back then to create what we needed. So we decided we can't do this script at this time. We rewrote the script and, had to take some of those things out because the technology just wasn't accessible to independent filmmakers. So it's been nice to see that kind of change and shift. You used to need, what was it called? Silicon graphics computers. You used to need a giant room, a warehouse. That was air conditioned.
It was crazy at that time.
And now we have more computing power in this iPhone. So it's been nice to kind of see the technology advance and the artists have become much more sophisticated and the work has become much more kind of attainable. So it's been an interesting thing to see.
So we ended at that. So what I wanted to ask you after that, so do you think virtual production has really kind of bolstered and helped us in achieving what we are planning to achieve and the investments that we are planning to support in terms of the high-end films, be it a superhero, be it a horror, be it a creature, be it an adventure movie of some sort? How was your experience with virtual production?
Are you talking about the LED screens, that type? Is that what you're referring to?
Yeah, the LED screens, the use of Unreal, and probably.
Yeah, it's interesting because, I'm actually doing my first movie using one of those LED screens in about 2 months. A company that I work very closely with has built a really nice, large, gigantic one in Eastern Europe. And I think the only way to really kind of understand exactly what you can and can't do with it instead of taking a seminar is to make a movie. So we're making a little movie there that we're going to go and get to spend some time and really understand the limitations and what can and can't be done. I do think that is going to make a significant impact. Once I think it becomes common, once everybody knows and understands what can and can't be done, screenwriter, everybody really has a good grasp of what it allows us to do. I think it'll make a significant impact because it simplifies a lot of things, in terms of having to move and not having to move locations, not having to move the set, the crew, 500 people. Sometimes it's easier for an actor that you need to say, hey, I need you for X amount of time and we'll be on a stage the entire time instead of moving around. So I think it's definitely going to help. I think the fact that some really high profile work has already been done on it, like the work that Disney and Lucas are doing on The Mandalorian and things of that sort. And I want to say, did Guillermo del Toro do some work on one too? I think Guillermo did some stuff with it, right?
Yeah, I think so too.
I think so too. Yeah. I mean, he's such an amazing filmmaker. But the fact that things like that are being done, that are being seen by a lot of people that have, it really kind of instantly legitimizes it and kind of makes people like you and I curious about it. So I'm really excited about this little movie we're making to go and really understand it. And I have a feeling we're going to incorporate that technology into a lot of what we're doing going forward. So I think we're going to see a lot more use of that.
Yeah, I think so too. That's the same thing that we are doing. Yeah, not exactly LEDs as of yet, even though we have set up something in UK, in Luton, but I think more of it is going to be now used as a pre than a post. But post will still be there, I think, at least 50 to 60%. The major shift will take time. Rise of digital platforms, Kia. So I'll straight away come to something that we are probably thinking of doing right now for one of our films, which I'm doing with Jackie Bagnani, Puja Entertainment, which is called BMCM, Bade Miyan Chote Miyan. It's a remake of a Hindi film, which was very popular. Taking it into metaverse, the rise of metaverse, and to create a world of its own, and to create IPs in there where people can go and watch and experience, and create a whole lot of assets and program them and make lounges and create create a different sort of cinema experience in metaverse. Apart from other digital platforms, which, if you want to talk about that, how probably it has helped the rise of all of those, including the recent metaverse, do you think it's going to be a paradigm shift? It's going to be like a whole lot of changes that we're going to see in the coming future? Are you planning to do something like that as well?
Listen, you talk about things like the metaverse and
Right.
digital real estate and whatnot. I think that stuff is terribly exciting. I think it's something that we have to embrace. You want to be the kind of the first movers and shakers in that space. So I welcome those who understand it well, and the kind of entrepreneurs that are going into that space. I think it's definitely something that is not a fad, and the more we learn about it, the more it becomes part of our fabric going forward. In terms of the streamers, I think that the streamers are terrific in one aspect and devastating in another aspect. It's probably not a popular thing to say, but I think some of what they're doing is really harming the independent film space. The fact that they are paying people what they're paying them because they're buying out their back ends and things of that sort make it a little bit more difficult for those of us that are still in the independent film space to compete with them in terms of what they're willing to pay an actor or an actress, a director, and whatnot. But I do think they're making great material. I do think that the streamers are making some really wonderful stuff. I can't wait to see the stuff Amazon's doing with Lord of the Rings. It just sounds fantastic. Netflix, Apple, all of them, they're making really wonderful things. But I think it's a bit of a slippery slope right now because it's a kind of a land grab, right? Everybody's fighting to get the eyeball, and we have to see kind of at the end of the day, when all this dust kind of settles, who's left on the playing field. One of the things that's interesting, and I think this is a direct result of what the streamers are doing, is if you think about the amount of money that's being pumped into content, it is astronomical, the amount of money that's being sent this year.
Absolutely agree with you.
Yeah, I think it was Disney and Netflix, I think, please don't hold me to this, but I think the two of them announced separately, obviously, that they're going to spend over $30 billion each on content.
Goodness, yeah.
Calendar year, just one calendar year. That's insane. So there's a ton of money being, funneled into content, which is exciting in and of itself, but that poses its own challenges, right? There's a finite amount of actors and directors and whatnot that now have a much, there, instead of 10 shows being made, there's 1,000 shows being made. So I think there's going to be a little bit of growing pains and just kind of trying to figure out where and how everybody's going to fit into it. So I think it's an exciting time. But I think it's a time that we also have to be kind of cautious and look 10 steps ahead and be aware of kind of what our decisions are going to, mean 10 steps ahead.
It's like buying land on the moon. Yeah, it's like the Netflix shift.
Yeah. There's a company that announced a couple of months ago that they're doing something with a space station. Do you remember that? There was an announcement about a company that's doing some real estate on the space station.
Yes, absolutely. Yes.
We want to do.
Yeah, they're building this whole covered land area.
That's exciting stuff. It's it's a really dynamic time to be in our business. It's an incredibly challenging time to be in our business at the same time. So I think
let me ask you, when we talk about this, do you think theater is going to die? It's dying? Do you think all this is going to kill it at the end of it all?
No, I don't think so. I think it's going to change, but I don't think, no matter how good a home theater gets, I don't want to watch a movie on my cell. I don't want to watch
same goes for me.
On my cell phone. I want to go opening weekend to Man's Chinese, get a big giant tub of popcorn and get a big 12-ounce Coke and watch it with other friends and fans and yell at the screen and throw popcorn at it and have a Death Star fly over my head and all those things. Does everybody feel that way? Probably not, but I do think that the social aspect of going to a theater cannot be replicated at home or on a cell phone or on on your watch or whatever it is. Even if you have an 80-inch or a 120-inch flat screen at your house, it's not quite the same as going to the theater and watching, Dune on IMAX. That beautiful, brilliant movie that he made. I don't ever want to see Dune on a small phone, ever. I want to see it on a big, giant screen with perfect lighting and a great sound system. So I do think that I don't think it's dying, but I think there's going to be a shift. I think that Listen, Spider-Man taught us. Look, Spider-Man in over the last few months has done what, 900 million dollars just in the States. People want
Yes.
to go to the theater. They want to see a good movie in the theater. Now, is it going to be more difficult for smaller independent movies to get that audience to get the screen? Maybe, but I do think the industry is going to shift, but I don't think it's going to die. My opinion.
Yeah, I think so too. I mean, this is something that I can't even imagine happening. Holding on to that thought, for bigger films and smaller films, for you, Kia, has the pattern of filmmaking changed over the years? Is it more to do with the use of technology, VFX, CGI, making a movie big, creating different worlds, or creating, different characters? Has it has this
No.
has there been a shift?
No, for me, there's never been a shift. If your goal is to make a movie with a bunch of cool visual effects, if that's the most important thing, in my opinion, the movie's going to fail. Nothing's going to work. I think the visual effects are a critical and really important tool, but they're just a tool. If you don't have a good story and you don't have a good script, and you don't have good characters, in my opinion, none of that matters. Right.
Right.
So what it's done, as I said earlier, is the advancements in visual effects have allowed us, or allow me as a filmmaker, to do certain things, to make certain things that I wasn't able to make a while ago. Right. So that from that aspect, it's been terrific. It's been great because we get to tell the stories we want to tell. They help us get out of what we need to get out of. But I've never made a movie because I thought, oh, this has a cool dinosaur in it or something that we're going to do CG.
Right.
If there is a CG character, great, but that's not enough for me, right? If you think about, in certain movies, the CG might end up being a character. Like, again, let's go back to Jurassic Park. I think those dinosaurs were a character in that film. Yeah. But if the other characters weren't great, if you didn't care about the other characters and the story and the kids and what was going on with the science and blah, 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 and then it would not have worked. You would have just had some pretty images. So I think there's that delicate balance of trying to figure out how the technology fits into the story that needs to be told, the characters that are interesting. I think there's a lot more to it than just, oh, great, now I get to make dinosaurs. Let's go make a dinosaur movie, right?
Yeah.
And I think it should be, I can make dinosaurs affordably, terrific. Let's find a great character. Let's find a great piece that can incorporate that into it, right?
True.
It just makes it bigger and better. So that's what we try to do. Now, do we get to do that all the time? No, but that's certainly what we try to do.
Yeah, the creatives should support the technology. I mean, not the other way around, right?
But again, I think it's critical that some creative can't happen without the technology. Right. Let's go back to James Cameron's movie back in whatever year he made The Abyss. The little water weenie that they made up at ILM. Without the technology to do that, they couldn't make that movie.
Sure.
Right. So that's a perfect example of they needed the technology to make the movie. However, that insanely amazing movie worked because of everything else, on top of the fact that John Bruno and the guys at ILM made that little water weenie. I think it was a John Bruno, or I don't remember who the visual effects supervisor was.
Yeah, I think it was Bruno. Yeah.
I think it was JB. Yeah. But the character, the relationship between Ed Harris and his ex-wife, and all of that played into it, right? And then it elevated the movie. You had a great movie that got elevated because of what ILM could do. So that's how I look at it. That's how you look at visual effects. That's how you look at music. That's how you look at the score. The lighting, all of that. But visual effects is such a critical component of a movie, because if it's not really good, it immediately takes you out of the movie.
Absolutely.
You instantly are taken out of the movie. If the movie's going great, suddenly there's a CG bird that flies in, but it looks like shit.
Yeah.
Right? So I think it's really critical to try to find a blend of the two.
Yeah. It depends on the story and authenticate that. Kia, do you mind talking a little bit about Misfits, the Misfits, which we did together, and I believe having a VFX supervisor, like at that time, working with one of ours, and it is almost like a must, right? When we're creating, we're probably shooting somewhere else, but we are showing another place. I remember we had a little bit of cleanups where we could not show certain things because of the restrictions we had in Abu Dhabi and the government buildings and all that stuff.
There were a lot of bless you. There was a lot of kind of hoops we had to drum through shooting in Abu Dhabi, and some things we could do, some things we couldn't show. So there was a lot of kind of fix it and post that we needed to do. I do think it's ideal to have a visual effects supervisor on set, because the right supervisor being on set to say don't move this or move that or measure this can save you so much headache down the line. So the ideal scenario is that you do get a visual effects supervisor involved early on as you're through your bidding process, through the storyboard process, through all that stuff. So ideally, yes, you do want to do that. Sometimes, the way the stars line up, you don't have that luxury. And that's when, hopefully the director, or in this case, myself, we have a fair amount of information and knowledge about the visual effects world to know what to do and what not to do. But I'm a big proponent of having a visual effects supervisor on set at all times that can not only oversee the plates, but can then oversee everything all the way through delivery to make sure that everything, because sometimes you're working with, multiple facilities, to make sure there's a consistency of the images, a consistency of the work. So I think it's a very important and critical position. And I'm very much an advocate of the men and women who do that.
Right. I mean, I just saw this for the other days on Apple TV. And it looks beautiful. I mean, it's a good looking film, and I'm glad we made it. Here, a little bit what I want.
Abu Dhabi, and the DP is a DP that I had used on a movie in Russia a couple of years before. This young gentleman named Denis Alarcon. He's an extremely talented and hardworking guy, and he brought a really interesting and beautiful and crisp look to the movie. So I'm very happy with the way that movie turned out.
Right, absolutely. A little bit, I wanted to have your views on the Indian media and entertainment industry. Somewhere, whatever you know about, I'm sure you have seen some Indian movies, or you're aware about what we do, and also the kind of special effects and VFX and CGI that emerges out of that comes out of our movies now, especially the kind of movies that we make. I think I've shared a few with you. So what do you think about our industry? How are we doing?
I let me start by saying, in my opinion, the industry, the film industry in India is obviously one of the most prolific in the world, and you guys have been making more movies for longer than just about anybody. So hats off to the folks who do that over there. I know it's difficult. My exposure to the industry has been somewhat limited. However, a couple of years ago, I was on the jury of a film festival in China, in Xi'an, in the Silk Road. And as a member of the jury, I had to watch, 50 movies. And I did get to watch a couple of movies that were made in India. And for the life of me, I can't remember the name of them now, but I remember one of the movies that I quite liked and I voted for was an Indian movie that had a fair amount of visual effects, but it was just such a beautiful movie. It was well done, well acted. I thoroughly enjoyed it. And obviously the work that you and I did on the last picture was the first time that I've actively engaged with a visual effects group out of India. And, that was a challenging experience because it was during COVID and everybody was working at home, and nothing about it was easy. My editor was at home. The lab was closed. I'm at home. Your artists are at home. You had, it was a bit of a shit show, but I have to say, given all the things that were going on, I thought that your guys were extremely responsive, took direction very well, and a couple of the shots we had to manufacture were not easy shots. So I appreciate the complexity of the work that was done in a short period of time. And I have to say, it doesn't always come down to this, but I have to say that financially, I thought that the work that was done was extremely well priced. For me to have done that work any other place, I think would have cost a significant amount of more money to do that. So I was very pleased with the work, and working with you and your team was excellent. So I'm happy to continue building and evolving my relationship with the vendors in India for sure.
Thank you so much for saying that, Kia. Thanks a lot. I mean, it was amazing experience. It was really an amazing experience. We worked with, I remember Photochem, right? we were kind of exchanging notes, and they were also facing a hard time because of COVID, and we were kind of closed. And there are a lot more studios. I mean, all our fellow colleagues and peers, and all of them are doing really, really great work. Coming to that, the only difference that I have felt, and with no offense to anyone, and I think you have felt that too, like you mentioned it, we at times battle with shortage of time and lack of funds, but we still try to compete with the qualities that we've seen internationally, right? Because the people are very dedicated. They're well trained, and they keep and they don't give up. They're at it no matter how many hours it takes. And planning wise, pipeline wise as well, I think we're pretty much getting there with the use of all the latest technology and that we're doing.
I think the message that I think needs to get out more to the rest of the world in terms of the capabilities that you guys have is, to me, it seems like it's an afterthought to let's think of India instead of let's think of India, right?
Right.
The first thought is to call, one of the big houses in the UK, or go to, Canada for the rebate or whatever. But I think if there's a way to, and again, it takes relationships like the one you and I have, where, one of my friends and colleagues who's working on the movie calls me and says, "Hey, I'm trying to put this movie together. I'm X thousand, 100,000, million over budget. What do I do? Where do I go?" I say, "Hey, I had a great experience working in India. Don't get there the long way. Just start there." Right? So I think it's just going to take a little bit more time for the world to understand what you just said. You guys worked your asses off. You were working 7 days a week, 3 shifts a day, and we got it done. The bottom line is we got it done, and we got it done for a budget. I remember, I worked for Jim Cameron and Scott Ross and Stan Winston years ago, and they were working on Titanic, and same thing, the visual effects crew on Titanic, they were working 7 days a week and crazy, but the ticket, the price of the ticket was very different than the price of the tickets. So, working 6-7 days a week is not something new to us that are in production, but I was really impressed with the dedication and the work, and I know that we kept changing our mind about a couple of things. I'm sure there were occasions where you wanted to, chop my head off, but we managed to get through it, and I'm very pleased with the work that was done. And I know the filmmaker was, and so was the whole team. So
I'm very pleased too. Kia, going forward into the future, we do have a lot of plans of producing movies together, of doing projects together, and I've been telling you about the kind of films that we have been kind of doing right now, getting engaged to do films like that of a creature and that of a superhero. Do you find it attractive to work with in production, when it comes to movie production, with heavy VFX and CGI, with the Indian film industry, partnering up with them, with investments coming from India, with investments coming from both sides, and
I'm happy to that all sounds really great. But again, it comes down to the material. I don't think anybody should make a movie because it's got a good creature. They should make a movie because it's a great story.
The content, absolutely.
Right. Yeah. And in terms of partnering up with, potential, partners in India, I welcome that opportunity. As you know, we're already in discussions with a couple of companies out there that want to kind of, that have been in the business of making specific movies for the market in India, and now are looking to make more kind of globally commercial movies. Sure. And that's, I think, the value that we can bring to that table. So that those are the kind of discussions that we are having, and those are the kind of things that we're looking into, and absolutely welcome. And I think the one thing that I have and some of the footage and the trailers that you've shown me on some of these bigger movies that are coming up, I mean, the work is exceptional. The work is exceptional. Everything looks terrific.
Thank you, Kay.
Yeah, so I don't have any reservations that the quality of the work isn't going to be there. It's just a matter of finding the right project that, as I said, is a great story that happens to have a creature, right?
Yeah.
Not a creature. And you can also build around it. I'm not saying you can't build around something, knowing that, hey, I have the ability to make a great creature cost effectively, right?
Yeah.
So, okay, great. Let's find an organic way to build that into a story that works. There's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
you
like
can't lose
they did it in the host.
yeah, exactly.
I
You
think
can't
they
lose
did it
sight of
very,
that.
very intelligently. Yeah, yes.
Yeah, they did it very nicely. I agree. I agree.
Yeah, what's your piece of advice to the Indian VFX studios and to the movie makers? What will be your piece of advice if you want to advise something to me and going ahead with what we do in VFX and CGI and also getting into production? What would be your advice from over 20 years, speaking from over 20 years?
Well, I would say just keep doing great work. Keep doing great work. Don't lose sight of the fact of what's important. If you're trying to get into production again, don't lose sight of the fact that it all has to work, not just one element of it, right? That's a pretty critical component. And in terms of, the filmmaking community, as I said, India has such a rich history in this business and has made such great movies and has turned out such amazing actors and actresses. So you're doing something right? My advice, and I speak about this when I, lecture around the world, is if you're a writer, you have to write every day. Just get up and write.
Yeah,
You're a director, get up. There's so many people that, come to me and ask me, like, what should I do? And I ask them, so when's the last thing you directed? Well, no. Get your iPhone and direct your cat walking in and out of the house. Figure something out. Work every day. Do something every day. If you're a writer,
absolutely. Yeah,
every day. You can't wait for the perfect, you write something good, write something bad, but just write. Keep working. So
yeah.
I would
Sorry if I could add a line. I mean, don't get overwhelmed, like you said, with
yeah.
with what and how and who we have to compete with. We can have our little lower budgets or whatever problems with time, but it's still the content, right? We can create a cat or a tiger or a whatever, but it's a story that counts. I mean,
Doesn't
make
matter.
that, shoot it.
Yeah.
And now we have everything available with us. The iPhone does a great job. I mean, just to shoot a teaser, I've seen it so many times.
Yeah. And my advice is just do it every day. Do it as often as you can. And, if somebody's a screenwriter, my advice is write every day and also read 100 scripts. Read the scripts for your favorite movie. See how did this word translate to that screen? Read a script of a movie you didn't like. See, wait a minute, was the problem in the script or was it in the execution? Read a great script, and if the movie didn't work, find out what happened. Where was the problem? Where did it go wrong? So I think there's so much material that's readily available out there. When I was starting, if you wanted to shoot a short film, you had to go rent a $250,000 camera to do it right. Now it's all right here.
Absolutely.
There's no excuse. You literally have no excuse to do the work, to understand, to really get into it. So my advice is just to do it and do it as often as you can. Surround yourself with great people. You can learn from them. They can learn from you. If you're the smartest person in the room, you're in the wrong room. Right?
Yeah.
Think about
yeah.
that. If you're the smartest person in the room, you're in the wrong room.
Can't agree more. Yeah.
Yeah. You want to be in a room with people that you can learn from, people that you can just kind of listen to them and become better because you're in the room with them and learn and whatnot. So it's such a competitive business that I say take every advantage you can, learn, read, watch, and do things like this. Go and listen to what filmmakers have done, and in a place like India where there's such a vast community in the filmmaking world, get an internship, learn about it. There's so much to be done. So much to be done.
One more question, which was playing in my mind, which is, do you think there's a gap between what the creatives and what the creatives deliver and what the production wants? I mean, is there a gap which needs analysis and solution, and from the VFX point of view as well?
That's interesting. You're saying a gap between the screenwriter and production, basically, right? I think typically what happens, the answer is yes, there's a gap, and it's always, in my experience, been a financial gap, right? Because, the screenwriter will sit there and write, and then 250 airplanes fly in and they blow up 75 ships and 1,000 people fly all around, right?
Right.
So,
because I never get my VFX budget approved, even if I kind of cut down on everything. So there's always a gap with VFX. And
I think it's a situation where typically the first visual effects budget comes in and the producers go, boy, this is ridiculous. I can't do this. It's a whole thing. But that's where the relationship comes in. That's when you have to have, you ideally have a relationship with your visual effects crew where you can say, listen, this sequence is really important to me. I really want to find a way to make this sequence work. This is my trailer moment. This is my trailer shots, if you will, right? When 100 people on fire are walking out of the ocean. Great, that's the shot I need. I need to figure out how to do that. And on the other stuff, let's figure out how to repurpose shots. Let's maybe, we'll lose a couple of these. I'll try to do some of this practically. What can I do? So then it becomes just like anything else. It's like when the DP gives me his or her first list of cameras and lenses, that's never where we end up. We go back and we go forth. And we realize we don't need a Technicrane for 27 days. We only need it for 15 days. So it's that kind of give and take. But yes, there typically is a gap between what's written and what production ultimately wants. Now, the one thing to understand is production isn't typically arbitrarily saying no. Production has to make everything fit within this box, right? Everything from the actors, the director, the wardrobe, the props, transport, all of that has to fit within this box of 10, 20, 30, 50, $100 million, right? So it's about working with your department heads and figuring out how to kind of make it all work, how to kind of make it become one cohesive entity. So it is a challenge. And typically we figure it out. Typically everyone ultimately ends up sacrificing a little bit.
Not a little bit from both ends,
not everybody gets everything they wanted, which in my opinion is the right way. If somebody gets everything they wanted, that means somebody else got screwed. So I kind of feel like everybody compromises. Okay, instead of 2,500 shots in the movie, we're going to lose this, this, and this. We're down to 1,700 shots in the movie. Instead of the 3D CGI shots, we're going to do, instead of 50 of them, there's only 25. So, and it's a matter of where and how effectively to use it and whatnot. So yeah.
Yeah, because creatives and production never want the same thing when it comes to 100% of the movie. They don't want the same thing. And they have to work on a compromise with that 30% and how to do it, like you said, if it's really important for the movie. And one of the most anticipated movies that we're going to release very, very soon, it's got this kind of a plane shot, and that's one of the major sequences. And production came back and said that, let's get rid of this. We don't need this because we don't have the budget for it. Where the creatives and the direction team, they're saying, no, that's the soul of the movie. That's where the movie kind of takes a turn and it comes to the last stage of what's going to happen. So I think it's more about how we figure out how to do that particular part of the movie.
That's a lot of what I do with the filmmakers sometimes. I say, listen, I can't, this shot you're talking about, the plane flying over, we can't afford it. So, but the director says, I must have it. Okay, then what are we compromising on? Right. Then that scene where you say you need 500 extras and 27 tanks? Well, how about we do that with 100 extras and 5 tanks? So it becomes kind of a give and take, and ultimately we figure it out. But unfortunately, there are times where entire sequences have to get cut because they just can't put it.
Yeah, but I think we are working on those budgetary differences as well, based on the content of the movie, which used to be massive between the West and us. But now I think it's more content driven, which you're right. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's amazing. It's amazing to hear all of this today. I mean, I wish you'd have told me some of it before. I mean, I never knew a lot of it till now, and I could have evolved more, And it's also feels great to kind of welcome you, to the community here. I hope people will listen and learn and understand what we have been trying to do, and some of our future plans, some of the things we have done in the past, and this revelation and this insight on how you have done things. I think this is just amazing. This is something to learn. This is something to grow, because those 20 years is time spent on such experiences that we have to kind of take from that and grow. Thank you so much, Kia.
It's been a lot of fun. Thank you for taking the time to speak with me. I thank everybody in the audience for listening, and hopefully sooner rather than later, I'll make a movie in India and we can actually, I can learn from you guys.
Absolutely, Kia. I'm waiting for that. Now is the time to do that.